Welcome to Creative Conversations. I'm Roger Humphrey. In this episode, I'm pleased to welcome the guitarist arranger Gregg Nestor. Gregg has published over 17,000 pages of music, recorded 15 albums, and has spent over 2 decades as a music proofreader in Hollywood. Please join us as we talk about this, his time spent with Henry Mancini, and a whole lot of other stuff. Before we begin, please hit the like, follow, and subscribe buttons, and any other button you happen to see down there. Also, leave a comment. I'm still trying to convince that pesky algorithm that people are paying attention. Thanks. And we are welcoming to the program the wonderful guitarist and guitar arranger, music arranger, Gregg Nestor. Gregg, hey, hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for Roger for the invitation.
Oh, appreciate you accepting it. You're very prolific. You do a lot of stuff, and you and I have been Facebook friends for many years, but this is the first
Yeah,
time we've had a chance to chat.
which
So
is great.
I've really been looking forward to this.
Same here too. I'm glad it all worked out and everything. That's
Yeah, me
great.
too. So I have to say I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank
You
you.
do some wonderful things. I do a little transcribing and some arranging, but not to the extent that you do. It's my target is usually more student oriented or community oriented. I conduct a little community based guitar orchestra, about 15
Mhm.
people, and so I've got everything from full on majors with their doctorates to people who just hobbyists on the weekends, and so I have to arrange music to please everybody, kind of thing.
I've been fortunate too in that the I've been working the last several years with a wonderful publisher called Clearnote, and they've sort of given me access to publish what I want. So I've worked out the mechanics of what needs to be set up for the publishing side for them. And they are very much a gentleman named Carl Wolf. He's very much interested in promoting guitar with chamber in all different forms. I mean, he works in a lot of different areas besides guitar, but guitar is his main passion. And so he's sort of a complete in-house print situation, and the publications are available beautifully for in printed form, and at the same time also in digital form because sometimes it's very expensive to send things overseas, postage wise these days,
Uh-huh.
and in some cases even ebook. So he's moving it in. He's trying to keep up with a lot of different formats, which is great. A lot of days I notice a lot of professional guitarists too, as well as just general, are using pads and tablets now to perform rather than having sheet music. I'm of the old school. I still prefer printed music out so you can physically have it in front of you and you can manipulate it and everything. But this new wave is going very strong and people seem to like it.
I've noticed it quite a bit too with the tablets. Now I stopped performing 5 years ago
Hmm.
for age related problems.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so as the tablets were coming in, people were starting to utilize them. I was asked, are or told, or suggested I should use those. And I thought, I'm about this far away from retirement, and I've been doing it for so many years this way. I think I'm just going to go ahead and let it slide. And so I did, and I don't necessarily regret that, but I kind
No,
of envy the people coming along because I can't tell you how many outdoor events I had to play with the music spread out, and I had clothespins everywhere.
I know. And now you can change pages electronically with the touch of a foot pedal and everything. The only downside is that as you see it is how you get it. So if you want to make alterations, short of printing the thing out, and there's limits on that, you really can't. You're sort of stuck with it. So if you disagree with the fingering or you want to make an alteration, it's not so easy. I still prefer the physical printed page, and these are so beautifully prepared. But I understand the physical cost in sending things, especially with post overseas. And there's a lot of people overseas buying this, or they want it that much faster.
Right.
So, it's an alternative.
Well, it is certainly a digital world largely, but not exclusively. And
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, and I know that I've downloaded a lot of music over the years,
Yeah.
and so and it's it's nice. And my cabinet back here, I'm sure I've got more than a half a dozen or so clear note publications in there that I've picked up over the years.
Yeah, well, they're doing a very, very good job. I mean, and I appreciate it when, he's to make it viable as a publishing entity. He's trying to cater to a lot of different things or keep things up to date. So he does a beautiful job it makes me very happy. The physical look of it and the printing is great.
Now you said you take care of the mechanical stuff. Does that mean you deal with licensing as well with
No,
you?
no. What I mean by that is the actual production of the music. I used to do that all myself, but I've been working with a wonderful lady the last 17 years named Milena Valcheva, who is in Bulgaria. And she's like a triple threat performer, superb music engraver, and we've worked out the formatting. So um, she's an expert in finale, whereas I'm not. And she's worked it out very well, and Sibelius too. So it's all set up beautifully for the publishing, and then he goes ahead with the final files and puts the necessary information on, gets it set up for publication, and away we go.
Gotcha. I see. So okay. Of course, finale is no longer. They've changed, but I'm sure
Right,
she's keeping up with that. I'm sure. So,
right,
so
right.
when you send it to her, how do you normally do you do it in some sort of finale program to send to her?
No, what I do is I still prefer, when possible, to do everything by hand.
Oh,
Over
okay.
the years, I've copied out parts for my own arrangements of close to 17,000 pages of parts and arrangements. And yeah,
That's
and
that's
so I've sent it to her, and we've worked over 15, 17 years, and so we have those many pages engraved out and prepared for engraving. And so I've established certain ones that I want that are published or to be published. Most of them are public domain material, which doesn't mean it's only Baroque music. It's a wide variety
oh sure.
of music. And then she prepares it and everything. I have to basically go through one or two proofings with her, and that's it. All the fingering, she's very, very accurate because she's a guitarist herself, and that makes life a lot easier. She's very much aware of how to things set things up. The most recent one for that we did was an adaptation of the Richard Strauss oboe concerto.
I
Um,
heard some of that. It's beautiful.
yeah, and we adapted it. I mean, I adapted it with the oboe part, and then there were mistakes in the original score. Those were all fixed. So now we have a full score with guitar. We've got the separate parts. We just finished doing a perusal score, which means that they can buy the complete publication with all the parts ready to go, or for study purposes, they can get the perusal score, which is just the score at a 9 by 12 size, very comfortable to look at. The final conductor score is a larger size, 11 by 17 is like 10 by 15 or something like that. So it's easier for a conductor
Right.
to do that.
So, are you still performing?
Occasionally, occasionally, not as much as I would like to, but occasionally. Like you, I'm more aware of the passage of time. So I did most of my recordings. I have about 15 CDs out, and I've done most of the recordings in the past. And my emphasis now is making the music available and encouraging other people, and in some cases sponsoring recordings, and getting a really fine result. Uh, Adam Levin and the Great Next Guitar Trio, for instance, in Boston, they have a superb studio nearby them called Futura, which is a converted Masonic temple.
Okay.
Excellent engineer, and they do the whole thing in Dolby Surround Atmos. We just
Wow.
finished recording the Bach double violin concerto, my arrangements, and I did it for two mandolins and three guitars,
Well,
and
that's
superb
cool.
Israeli mandolin player. So that's now been recorded and edited, and then they're working on some other projects too. So it works out very, very nice. They're very enthusiastic.
How do you come up with? Well, I got a variety. It's talking about creativity, and sometimes there is no real answer. But Number one, how do you choose the pieces that you want to arrange?
It's sort of funny how it sometimes happens. There's a local classical station, 91.5 in the LA area. And inevitably, I've been driving along and I've just been listening to it, and something piques my interest, and I think, oh, this might be fun to do. And for some strange reason, whenever Adam has a project, he usually catches me in the car at a gas station. I'm filling up gas, and he said, "Gee, we've thought it might be fun to arrange the Beethoven Violin Concerto for violin or mandolin and three guitars." And I said, "Okay," and all right. And end result, we did it, and we just recorded it last few months, so it came out very, very well. Pretty wild on mandolin, as you can imagine, but it's being
Yeah.
published for violin and three guitars, a violin guitar trio.
Oh, okay. So that sounds lovely. It sounds lovely.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, my cookie at the end of the day, I spend a lot of time in here all day long, but it's always working, and and I don't listen to music in here unless it's work related,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so my cookie at the end of the day is I come in here about 11 o'clock or so, and I'll sit here for an hour or so, an hour and a half, and just go through YouTube and just randomly grab things and and that's how I've been choosing music to, and because I'm not performing anymore and I don't have to worry about that kind of a practice schedule during the day and that kind of thing. And I don't teach as much as I used to. I mean, I used to
Yes.
teach a lot. Now I got like a dozen students a week, which is nothing. And so I used to do that in a day. So and so I've got a little elbow room, and if I don't make myself busy, my wife will smother me in my sleep. So 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 I come in here, but that's coming in here at night like that, and just kind of
Yes.
settling down and just listening to music, and I'm coming, and then other times, of course, I'm meeting people through the podcast, and so I'm going and listening to their stuff, and so I get to pick their brains vicariously, through this, which is kind of fun too. So
Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes things come along, but it might be a project from someone who has an idea. Um, One of the ones that Adam and this mandolinist did, which they asked me to do arrangements on, it was a project called Rachel's Mandolin, and it was finding music by survivors of the Holocaust,
oh,
or in some cases didn't survive,
uh-huh.
and they were musicians, and we found fragments of pieces that they wanted to uh, perform as a, and then there's a story with how they they survived or they didn't survive in the case of that period of time. So a lot of people that were just young kids that were composers that didn't survive, but the music is very, very nice. So they organized the whole program, and that led to some very beautiful surprises
Oh,
they performed live. And funny enough, as a wake-up call when they were coming to be rescued, the wake-up call within that was the first movement of the Beethoven Symphony Number 5. Ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-bum, right? And so they asked me to make an arrangement of the first movement for mandolin and guitar. As
oh
crazy as that
wow.
sounds. And they performed it all the time. The only thing to make it work on guitar is the original key is C minor or three flats, and I moved it up to D minor, a whole step, made it practical on the guitar and everything. But it's quite a fun work to hear them perform that first movement, you know.
I bet it is. I know that it's not only more practical, it's three flats. It's like, no.
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but the guitar responds better. I think it's not just physically easier. I just think the guitar, personally, I think the guitar likes that key much better. It
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
resonates.
and of course, because of the dynamic elements of Beethoven, you're going loud, soft, and it's very powerful, aggressive. Sometimes
Yeah,
you need that expansion to be able to do it.
right. So now, do you work on commissions also, or just suggestions? And
Both. I mean, they're often commissions. It all depends. It all depends. But it's just been a selected group of people that I've done this with that have generally that are active in concerts. My whole goal and everything else was to make these wide variety of arrangements available for all different combinations of guitar, duo, trio, a tremendous amount for voice and guitar over the years. And I was able to also gain access into film studios here and get photocopies of original scores that I could work from.
Wow.
So, for instance, I did a whole recording of music of Max Steiner and Franz Waxman. Steiner wrote Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, Treasure of Sierra Madre.
I was actually listening
Yeah,
to a few cuts of those about an hour and a half ago.
yeah,
It's and I thought to myself as I was listening to it, I thought, why isn't this more a part of our general repertoire?
yeah,
If I hear one more version of Asturias, I'm going to gag.
right. But yeah, absolutely, absolutely the case. And they're wonderful music. So,
Oh
and I
yeah.
was going back to the original source to make the arrangements. So, in that particular case, I made the arrangements. Um, and then wonderful composer named Henry Mancini heard the recording.
Oh.
Uh, I got a call from him one day. It was quite funny. The secretary got on the line and she said, "This is a Henry Mancini secretary. Henry would like to speak with you." Okay. So he's on the line and he's complimented me on the CD. And then there's a pause and he says, I have stuff too. And my first thought was, he's just called his music stuff. That's not how I wouldn't address it as just stuff. Anyway, he invited me down to his offices in LA, and he let me rummage through and take anything I wanted of his original handwritten score. So I had the originals of Moon River, Panther, anything I wanted. And then I worked directly from these scores and made the adaptation. He was treating it as an opportunity to learn more about what the guitar could really do because he knew it from a certain level. But what better way than having someone take your music that you know so well and adapt it to a new format and let that expand out.
I
So
know
that's
that
how that worked out.
I think it's an amazing story.
Yeah,
I know there are a lot of composers, and it's almost comical over the years how many composers have wanted to write for guitar, and they've just four measures in and they're bogged down. I mean,
yeah,
I know Segovia. I don't want to say complained, but he certainly commented on
sure.
working with these different composers who. They bless their hearts. They tried, but
To
but
really understand the instrument, what it could do.
right, exactly. So it's a wonderful instrument. It's underutilized, I think, but
Yes.
that's I'm showing my prejudice now.
Well, and these are the things because also I was thinking in terms of just audiences. Um, People like to hear things that they may be more familiar with, or they maybe not. And when you hear it in a different context, and it's being truthful, it's not watered down, and it's not quote unquote dumbed down,
Right.
but you're able to express everything that's there in the score. And when I did it, I also recorded it with some superb players. I mean, in the case of three of those film score CDs, I hired and largely used Bill Cannongeiser. So Bill and I did the recordings, but also we combined with different combinations, harmonica, cello, even trombone. Trombone surprisingly can play very, very quietly and very beautifully with the guitar, and it makes a beautiful, beautiful sound.
Wow, I never would have thought to
Yeah,
make
no, you
this.
wouldn't. It's not all 76 trombones. You can
Well,
actually,
yeah.
not that kind of sound. You can play very, very subtly on the trombone. So I did two Mancini recordings. We did Dear Heart, and there's another thing is skipping my mind that I did uh, with um, with a very fine trombone player here, and it worked out beautifully.
Oh, wow. I'll have to look for that then.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I'll have to check that out. So, always thinking about things like that. I think it's, that's part of the art of what you do is being able to find the right instrumentation and the voices
yeah,
and put these things together and do it in a creative way, which I think is fascinating. It's some things are just really obvious. Well, we'll throw three guitars at it, but the idea of doing a guitar and and trombone. I never in a million years. I've played in a trio with guitar, flute, and clarinet, and that was
Yes.
a lot of fun. And that went doing straight ahead chamber stuff,
Yeah.
and that's not something you would normally expect either. But yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. I remember the second piece we did. We did it. It was a piece called Yasmin from which was written for Sophia Loren, which I did for trombone. So very slinky, sexy sort of melody with for two guitars and trombone. Unfortunately, Sophia Loren couldn't be there to turn the pages, but you can't have everything.
Oh darn!
Although I heard a very funny story. There was a composer I was working with for some time. He's up there in his age, named Lawrence Rosenthal, who did Clash of the Titans and any number, and actually wrote the ballet sequences for Music Man. So
Oh,
one of the films he told me one of the ones he did we orchestrated for film was not Don Quixote what's the A Man of La Mancha,
yeah,
Man of La
okay.
Mancha,
Mhm.
of which and Sophia Loren sang briefly in that film. And so he said he had the great pleasure of having Sophia Loren perched by him on a piano bench next to him while he accompanied her. He said that was one of the most enjoyable afternoons of his life.
Yeah,
He's always so
none of
lucky.
my rehearsals have ever been that good. So
You think,
that's wonderful. So
yeah.
I was uh, I was also listening briefly to uh, the Arpeggione, which I just absolutely love that piece, and you arranged that for orchestra guitar, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is, of course, the brilliant John Williams recording, but that's done with just guitar and strings, which is fine.
Uh huh.
I decided to think more in terms of the kind of colorations Schubert would have. And so that's why I did a version with guitar and chamber orchestra, um, in Schubert's, what I would imagine would be Schubert's style. And it seems to work quite well. It's getting a lot of
Oh,
interest.
yeah,
I mean,
it's good.
it certainly works well, as a guitar and piano or something like that,
Hmm.
obviously. But it's a different way to think about it.
So yeah, I love it, and uh, guitar and Schubert seem to go together very well, and it's I've not explored his stuff nearly as much as I should have over the years.
Yeah,
And
when I was arranging a lot for voice and guitar, I went through all of Schubert's Lieder. Not that also Brahms,
Mhm.
Mendelssohn, and what am I leaving out? Schubert and Schumann.
Okay,
And I arranged about 186 Lieder of
wow.
those composers, about 80, 85 of Schubert. And then those were also published in volumes, about 8 different volumes for voice and guitar now. And there's been a lot of performances of them. I first started performing those. I think I gave when I played Wigmore Hall back in 1978, 1979 with a singer. We performed some of the Schubert at that occasion, which like Differella and so forth, which is great fun to do. It's not easy to do, but it's fun.
I have thought for years, and this kind of I guess kind of dots the I a little bit. I taught college for over 30 years,
Yes.
and I've thought for over and over and over again that the guitar should, not just could, but should actually be utilized far more in accompaniment situations, and particularly with
Yeah.
Schubert Lieder. These voice students are always scrambling trying to find a pianist because there's a limited number of pianists, and they have juries and and everything, and everybody's got to have them at the same time, and these poor pianists are just getting slammed. And I thought, if you're going to do Schubert, if you're going to do some of this other stuff, arrange it for the guitar,
Yeah.
and because there are guitar players out there that would be thrilled to be able to do that and pick up a couple of bucks on the side as an accompanist. So,
Sure.
and it works well. I mean, particularly with Schubert.
It works very, very well. It really, really does. So, I mean, I've been a great proponent of voice and guitar material whenever possible because, and there's such a wide variety that could be done and should be done. Um, and for instance, one of the ones that I will be publishing soon, I arranged the Songs of the Auvergne, which by Canteloube, and I got Canteloube was a wonderful orchestrator, and he set these beautiful French songs. So he did it for full orchestra, but I was able to get copies of the orchestration, and then I arranged it for a septet. I did it for flute, oboe, clarinet, violin, voice, guitar, and double bass. And performed some of them at Wigmore Hall in a smaller version of it, and they work beautifully. They are absolutely, it's like getting a work from Ravel. It's just beautiful.
Oh wow, that sounds beautiful. So, um, when you're composing, and you say you're old school and you like to do things out longhand, do you utilize technology for other things like listening back to the orchestrations and things like that, or
What I'll tend to do, and I don't really call it composing. Composing and arranging to me are two different things. Composing is taking something that's, you're starting from scratch.
made out of
Arranging,
whole
you're
cloth,
taking
right?
from yeah, something from one format to the other, or adapting it. But generally, what I will do is I can hear it in my mind what I'm doing, and then when I give the manuscripts to Milena to do the engraving, I get it back from her, and she'll send me a MIDI file, and I can listen to it in MIDI file also, and just sort of verify that what I did makes musical sense. And I mean I still proofread everything. I look through every note
Sure.
because I spent over 25 years as a proofreader for feature films, and so it's just natural that
Oh,
that's how I look at it. I've copied out the parts for over 100 feature films over the years, and I in those cases, I was engraving out the parts or hand copying them out. Um, and so I got very, very familiar with proofreading. My eye just sort of goes for that whenever possible. So, and because Milena is so accurate, it makes it very easy to work with her. And we just have to go through one or two rounds of proofreading, even with very difficult scores.
it's okay. That makes sense. Now, the way I work, I have to hear it back because but I don't have your proofreading experiences. So for me, I listen and I go, oh, that note's not right, and I go in there and start fussing
Sure.
about.
Well, what I will do, let's say, typically, what I will do, I will write a rough draft of it by hand, just what
Uh-huh.
I call a dirty draft, which is not very neat or anything,
Oh
just
yeah,
very, and do it that way, and play it through and make sure it works that way. So I will eventually then rewrite everything, very neat hand copying work, and go at it from there. Uh, what I have here, and I'll show it just in a second, is just a book which allows me. This is the case of the Strauss Concerto that I arranged.
uh huh.
It started. I don't know if this does this come out
Yep.
backwards or.
Yep. Oh, well, no, no, it's coming out forward.
Oh, good. Okay. So that's my dirty handwriting, as I call it. Just extremely fast and so forth.
Uh
Just
huh.
scribble. So that's stage. Then stage two is what I would eventually give Milena to work for. So this is my handwriting.
That's a lot prettier.
Lot easier to read. Yeah. So in this case, there were 76 pages of this.
Wow.
That's all my hand copying. This is the guitar and piano reduction that
Okay.
I. So anyway, that's what Milena works from. It's all laid out very cleanly. The fingering, everything's there, and then she takes it from there.
Well, another question I would have is do you find yourself in the midst of writing that out suddenly getting inspired to do something else? Do you have time management issues? I do. So,
No, no. If I start doing this, I mean, I'll set myself up to do a certain amount of pages each day,
oh, okay.
5 or 6 pages. So this will be stretched out over a couple week period. I'm talking about for this.
Uh huh.
Because it's very detailed to do this with all the
Yeah.
notation.
Right.
Working on film score, it's a different thing because you might have to turn out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages and parts in a very short time. What I used to do was to do it by hand. Now I will get the score usually in a computer format. That's more a case of part extraction and making it look logical for the players, what they
Uh-huh.
want to see. And it's not quite as complex to do as what you would do with the guitar. So that's a little bit different. Then you're under certain time constraint. When you have a 70 or 80 piece orchestra sitting there on so and so a day, you can't call them up and say, "Can you come back tomorrow?"
Yeah.
They may come back, but you won't. You know.
Well, I was going to ask you what your work day is like, because you're very prolific. You've got a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, well, this is also over a 30 or 40-year period. So if you look at it in the long term, I will try and set aside a certain amount of hours in the morning, maybe during the day. It all depends. Sometimes, like with these piano engravings, I may focus on it for a week, week and a half, and I may take 7 or 8 hours a day and do it
Huh.
until my eyes give out. That's the other. We're not neither of us are necessarily spring chickens anymore.
I ate
And
that spring chicken a lot of years ago.
yes, yeah, 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 exactly, exactly.
Yes, 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 yes.
Instead of spring chickens, we're now more like spring fowls. So,
Somebody I haven't
just
seen in a
trying
long
to,
time looks at me and goes, "You're still alive?"
yeah.
That's funny. So, well,
Yeah.
Greg,
So,
believe it
yeah.
or not, we're about out of time.
Oh my gosh, it's been wonderful fun talking with you.
I've really enjoyed this a lot, and I hope maybe we can get together and do it again sometime soon.
Love to,
So,
love to.
so anytime. So, anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to say bye, and I'll talk to you at that next time.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
Thank
Greg.
you so much, Roger.
I want to thank Gregg Nestor for taking the time to come on the show. If you'd like to know more about Gregg or purchase some of his music, there are some links in the description below. I want to thank you too for taking the time to hang out with us. Please grab a friend and listen to more episodes of Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey.